And this is one that, especially if you're newer to running, will definitely be of interest. It's like one of the most common questions that I've fielded over the years from newer runners and from runners that are maybe new to something like running the marathon, which is kind of its own different animal altogether from just running. Oh, and certainly ultras, absolutely, because that's a whole other ball of wax altogether. But the question is, what do you eat before a run or a race? How do you time it? And, is the whole carb thing legit or not? So put together a few sort of basic guidelines or tips for how to nail pre-run and pre-race, because they could be a little bit different approaches to fueling, eating, just so it works, if nothing else, and also to fuel properly before a run. Okay, Katelyn, question number 1 for you. Like, how important is it to fuel before a run or a race? And is there a difference between like fueling before a run versus fueling before a race?
Yeah, I feel like fueling, at least in my experience and what I've seen in athletes and what you see, fueling can make or break a race. You don't know how to properly fuel before your race or during your race or in the days leading up to the race, and you could literally just ruin your performance based on not fueling properly. And today we're going to focus just a little bit more on, because there's so much we could get into, because you've got carb loading, which you're talking about maybe 1, 2, 3 days before the race. You're talking about what you eat before a run or a race the morning of, and what you do for your fueling strategy throughout the race. Today, we're really just going to touch on, because we just don't have time to go through everything, we're going to just touch on what you would eat the morning of. So, or if you don't run in the mornings, it could be an afternoon or evening run or lunch run or whenever you get your chance to do your workouts. But we're basically going to talk about the before the run or before the race the morning of. And I feel like most of us know that there's been a big fad with keto diets and fasted running or fasted exercise in general. And, everyone's going to have their own take and what works for them. And like we've mentioned, and we will continue to mention every single time, everything it depends, because what you eat and how you eat is going to be very different than what I eat and what works for me. So that's why trial and error in running is the most important piece of advice we can possibly give. But at least we can look at general guidelines and kind of figure out the why. And fasted exercise or fasted running, maybe you can get away with it for a recovery run in the morning after you've fasted all night and you've just had something in the evening for dinner and you wake up and you go for a run. But does that really make you feel good even during a recovery run? I like to fuel before every run. And I just feel like the way that you do fuel is going to be different, as Michael mentioned, like before a recovery run or before a super difficult threshold run or speed workout or before a long run or before a race. So I feel like no matter what we're looking at here or what workout or what race, I do feel like it's really important to fuel no matter what. It's important to know what's going to work for you. It's important to know the timing, what you're going to eat. One, because you just don't want to feel hungry. I don't know about you guys, but if I don't eat before a run, I feel hungry. I get a headache. I get stomach growling, grumbling while I'm running. I'm obviously not going to perform well if I feel hunger. And the all famous, you don't want to be in a glycogen depleted state, right? We want to make sure our glycogen stores are topped off, carbs, we've got everything, all the energy that we need to be able to perform. And so the why is basically to feel good, to perform well, and to make sure that you can follow through with whatever you have in your plan. You might have a workout where you need to hit paces. Well, if you're fatigued and tired and glycogen depleted, you're not eating, you're not going to feel well enough to be able to. And if you do it, you'll probably feel terrible. You'll feel better if you eat. So I think, carbs. We'll get into that in a second when we talk a little bit more about what we eat, and we're each going to have something different. But I do suggest fueling before any run, whether it be recovery, whether it be speed work, whether it be a long run, or whether it be a race.
What about timing? Like, just simple example.
Yep.
Just your daily run, like today.
Okay.
If you've run today, like how'd you space it out?
Okay. When I run here at 5 a.m. So I eat a snack at 4 a.m. I like to do the hour. the hour before. And
God.
yes, I know it's a huge commitment.
That's the middle of the night, Katelyn. That's not the morning.
Okay.
4 o'clock in the morning
Everyone,
is not
do
the
this.
morning.
Okay, if you run at 8 in the morning or 7 in
Okay.
the morning and you're
Okay.
lucky enough to be able to do that, I just kind of always got on a schedule from being a teacher for so many years. I had to be at the high school at 7 a.m. So if I had to run and then I had to get home and then I had to shower and I had to change and I had to get to work, I kind of got on the schedule years and years ago. So for whatever it is, let's not talk about time. Let's talk about an hour before a recovery run, a speed work. I can handle that 1 hour with a small snack. So if it's going to be either recovery, if it's going to be like today, I had to do a threshold run, and I was like, okay, this is going to be. You remember my favorite kinds of runs. We know it's going to be super hard, very taxing. And then afterward, I was going to go to the gym and do strength training. So I said, okay, I've really got to feel good. So I find something that's like very carbohydrate, calorie dense, but it's not a lot of food. And we can get into like what we eat later. I ate like a very sugar dense vanilla granola, with, and it was like, it only had to be like 2/3 of a cup, but it was, plenty of carbs and tons of calories. And I said, okay, this isn't a lot of food. And so in an hour, I'm not going to feel like I'm full. I'm just going to have all this energy. So for me, it's an hour before. I know some people can get away with eating 15, 30 minutes before a workout. I can't. I still feel like it's a little bit uncomfortable sitting there in my stomach. So I prefer to eat 1 hour before. If we're moving on to a long run, and I'm going to be eating basically breakfast or my first breakfast of the day, it would be 2 hours before. So again, if I'm going to be eating...
You're getting up at 3 a.m.
No, because usually, perhaps if I'm going to go out for a long run at 5, but usually the long runs are with our running club, and so they're later. They're like at 7 a.m. because we usually have to travel a lot to get to different places. So say like a long run, if I'm starting a little later, it's a little easier.
So you do about 2 hours. You space it out about 2 hours, right?
About
And
2
do you
hours.
eat the same sort of thing, or are you thinking about trying to get a little bit more of a carb intake in because it's the longer effort?
Yeah, I do. I think I do. Toast, jelly, bagels, honey. Like a bagel for me is the max because it's just like a ton of carbs and sugar, packed into the bagel. And if you just put a ton of honey on it, I mean, you can really get a lot of carbs in there. So that's what I would do. That's what I do before a long run, an important long run, or definitely a race. But the race, I don't know about you guys. I want to hear what you guys do and see how we differ with the nutrient timing. But I will eat 3 hours before a race. And sometimes that can be, really extreme. Because if you're running, usually a race is, at least here in Costa Rica, they're starting at 6 a.m. So we're talking about literally getting up right before 3, eating, going back to rest for a little bit. Look at Michael's face. I love it.
Man.
You guys have to see Michael's face right now. He's just shaking his head at me.
I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I go to bed at 6 p.m. to run my race.
You're not too far off there.
Well, that's a commitment to the craft right there.
So I'd say about, 3 hours before a race. But then for a race, I'm always taking something half an hour, 20 minutes before, popping an energy gel or something, because obviously it's been a while before I've had something to eat. And then obviously, the race strategy, which is for another day. But I think the timing for me, that works best. And that's pretty much, if you look for general guidelines, you'd say pre-run snack 15 to an hour before if you can, because people don't want to get up super early like I do, a couple of hours before a longer run, and then maybe 2 to 3 hours or so before a race. But why don't you guys tell me what you do? What works for you?
Alex.
See, I made 2 cardinal mistakes in my life. When I was a kid, I needed you, Katelyn. Someone told me I needed to have carbs before a race, so my pre-race meal became Alfredo. Didn't matter what time of the day, just Alfredo.
Like a cream sauce?
Yes.
Oh, God.
The type that you get at like an Applebee's and you don't have to eat for the rest of the day. I would have a full plate of Alfredo, and then my stomach would kill at the race, and I would tell myself, my God, I'm nervous. And then it took until grade 12 to find out that I was doing it wrong, and that carbo loading had to happen the day before. Anyway, details.
Okay.
Details are important.
Yep.
In university, I started doing this thing where I would eat 3 hours before the race as well.
Yep.
And I think I nailed that timeline, but I would always try to eat something weird and fancy, like something a bit healthier than my regular meals. So for example, like 2 trays of raspberries, or like a type of fruit that I don't really have very much.
Fiber.
And then so just
tale of
no
mistake
of
like,
do nots.
Yeah.
This is the do nots. But then what I realized by maybe my 3rd year of university, so I was 20 years old at this point, was just eat things that your body is used to taking in. When I'm in the morning, it's easy. I have the same breakfast every morning. I have a bowl of cereal and a piece of fruit. That's it. When the race is later in the day, well, then you're playing around with meals. So that can get to be a little bit more complicated. But for me, what works, 3 hours before, is a meal that's divided into like 3 pretty equal portions between carbs, protein, and vegetables, right? So a pasta or rice, some vegetables, and chicken or salmon. And I try to have it 3 hours before. If I have it too close to the race, then I do feel heavy.
Yep.
And then coffee. 90 minutes before the race, I have coffee. That's what I'm most religious about.
Always.
The food takes care of itself.
Okay.
Why are you so religious about the coffee, Alex?
Because I've led myself to believe that caffeine gives you a boost. I'm a regular coffee drinker, so now I used to not drink coffee, and so coffee actually did give me the boost. Now it just puts me up to baseline, so I'll usually have a double coffee or something a little bit strong, like a double espresso or a double Americano. There are like quite a bit of studies out there that show that caffeine does give you some health benefits or some running benefits when taken before. Fun fact, it used to be banned. It used to be a banned substance back in the day.
Yeah. So
for athletes.
My approach is pretty similar to yours, Alex, which is that I'll work my way backwards. Races, absolutely. 3 hours before, it's like it's dialed in. It's part of the tried and true routine that I've stuck with for, since nearly the beginning, particularly with the marathon. Like you don't screw around with the marathon. So, like as an example, it's really difficult when I'm traveling. Chicago Marathon, Boston is really tricky because there's all of this like weird, screwy travel to get out to the start line on the bus of doom that takes you from the city to Hopkinton, and then it's a really tough thing to time that meal. But I try to keep it at 3 hours as well. And I actually practice this for my long runs. Once the long runs get to be 30 plus kilometers, so 19-ish miles, 18 and a half miles. Once they get into that zone and I start doing a longer long run, so 2.5 hours on my feet type thing or more, I start practicing. Basically, I start using that Sunday as my blueprint or my proving ground for race day. And so I get up. So if I'm doing a long run at the civilized hour of 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't get very hot here, right?
That's true.
It gets
That's
hot,
true.
but it doesn't get like pulverizingly hot. But let's say 8 a.m., 8 or 9 a.m.
Okay.
So when Katelyn's having lunch.
That's right.
I was just going to say, that's my second breakfast, Alex.
Yes. When Katelyn is eating lunch and I am getting ready to go for my run, I woke up at 6 a.m. for 9 a.m., 5 a.m. for 8 a.m. typically. And that works really well. Just timing. I also like to consume a lot of fluid, and I practice this because I also do this before a race. I consume an inordinate amount of fluid, probably more than most people would, and I don't necessarily recommend it. But like before a long run, I'll take in like a liter of fluid or more before a long run.
Okay.
And that just helps sort of like regulate my body. I'm well hydrated. I'm peeing a lot in the hour before I'm going out to run. And I know I know it works for me. So, and I will definitely drink. So I will have a bagel and honey or jam. Or if I'm really if I don't have any of those things in the house, I'll just take cinnamon and sugar and kind of sprinkle it on top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. And And then also kind of like a warm, nostalgic childhood memory, having like the toast with cinnamon and sugar.
Yeah,
I don't know, I had that when I was a
totally.
kid. So it's like a comfort food for me. And I absolutely have to have a cup of coffee, and I need to get it into the system soon. And this, we're going to be TMI here, guys, but like there's a huge element of all this with the thing we're talking around right now. The thing we're all sort of like dancing around as we're talking about like, what should I eat? And how long should I wait before I eat?
And why is
why
that,
shouldn't
Michael?
I eat vegetables? And it's because of poop, people. It's because of pooping.
We're back
We
on.
all need to. Katelyn, we found our way back to poop.
We found our way back to it every
Yeah.
time.
Every damn time. It's the runner's preoccupation.
Yep.
It's timing. That is why we're talking about not eating lots of like super nutrient dense macros, like why we're avoiding lots of fiber, why
Right.
we're not eating, really like Weetabix cereal beforehand, why
Right.
we're not consuming a lot of dairy, why
Bran
we're not
flakes.
eating, not eating our raisin bran.
Yeah.
It's because and why you don't eat vegetables in
Right.
the carb the night before with your pasta dinner the night before the big race or the long run is because you're producing a huge amount of fiber. It's hard in your body, and then it throws everything off. You want to keep things nice and clean and
Yep.
simple and basic and carby. And there's the aforementioned glycogen stores. It's the way your muscles absorb and retain a basic like sugars, basically energy, and they and your body stores it up, and it's in the form of glycogen, and then it's released during a long distance effort. And in fact, lots of studies show that it's not released until it takes a while to train your body to release it properly. That's why long runs are pretty important, right? So anyway, yeah, so 3 hours before a long run, 3 hours before a marathon for sure. I keep it the same for the 5K and the 10K. I just sort of keep that same practice, about 3 hours. I've experimented in the long run with like what I can get away with before things kind of get a little disastrous. And I can get up to 90 minutes before a long run and pull it off, but I just have to like consume a little bit more fluid to kind of get the digestive tract working in my working properly.
Working.
Yeah. I will say one thing that might upset Katelyn though, which
What?
is I do a 5 a.m. run too, Katelyn. And quite often I don't eat anything before. I don't get up. I get up. I run at 5:15 most mornings.
Okay.
I wake up at 5 o'clock. I put
You
on
just
my
go.
running shorts. I'm still half asleep. My legs are super stiff, and I walk out the front door, and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And it works pretty well. Everything seems kind of closed and shut down at 5:15 in the morning. So I don't drink coffee. That would be a bad idea. It gets things moving. It's a bad idea. It's a diuretic.
Right.
I don't eat anything. I don't even take any water.
But
If I'm
but do you feel good? I mean, if you feel okay and it works for you, it's okay.
I feel nothing until about 7 o'clock in the morning.
I
'cause
see.
I'm not
I see. You
awake.
don't even know you ran.
Yeah, I just come back and I'm like, oh, there was 10 miles that just got done on my watch somehow. I give this little like, you ran a 10K, Michael badge on my Apple Watch. And I'm
Okay.
like, yes, okay, that happened. No, I just find like if maybe I haven't been running very much, it affects me a little bit and I feel a little bit tired and kind of gross. And maybe I could have used something to eat, but it just like, I'm not getting up at 5 in the morning, 4
Right.
in the morning. I have to get up at 5 because it's where it fits, but that's it. But I find over time it doesn't really affect me. For a recovery run, for a workout, it's very different. For a workout, I then employ a similar strategy at a different point in the day because I typically do my workouts on Thursday evenings, kind of after
But you've
work.
been eating.
I've been eating throughout
Right.
the day, and I
Right,
do.
right.
And we're recording on a Thursday,
Oh.
so today I'm approaching things in a certain way, and I would recommend others do this as well. If you have an evening workout, which is tricky because you've been consuming food all day, and it's tough to get things timed properly, but I try to think about things in terms of like I will stop. I have to be very careful about how much I snack in the afternoon. I eat a carby lunch and I switch to liquids after about 2, and I actually try to avoid drinking an afternoon coffee for aforementioned diuretic reasons. So that's my strategy.
Okay.
And yeah, so I try to, last thing I'll put in my body would be 3 to 4 hours out. And it is true. I get hungry and I get the growl and I get the like, oh man, I should have eaten something. But a decade or more of experience has told me that being a little bit hungry going into a workout versus having a full complicated tummy is the better choice. So that's my approach.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we want to avoid any GI problems. Like, we're always circling back. So that's why we say, if you can, stick to the simple carbs. Don't try to eat a lot of vegetables. But like in Alex's case, he just told us he's able to eat a portion of vegetables. He's able to eat a portion of protein, and he feels good. And so that's why, you've got to try it out. I don't. Before, the night before, I'll do pasta. I'll do simple carbs almost all the way, just because that's what works for me. But I feel like if you can handle it and you can have that, the 3 macros in there and have a little fat, a little protein, a little carbs, and some vegetables, and you can handle it, it's fine. But I think that, the simple carbs is what works for me. It's easier to obviously it's going to be used for energy. The protein and the fat's a little harder to break down, all that stuff. But one thing that I absolutely want to highlight that Michael said, that I think that we have to practice it a lot. And so when Michael mentioned that, we have to try this and start doing it before all of our long runs is absolutely paramount to being able to figure out what you're going to do on race day. And it's with absolutely everything. And we always talk about that, the golden rule, don't try anything new on race day. I think we all have fun stories we can tell about that. I've got a great one. And guess what? It circles back to our favorite topic. So I feel, that that's it. Practice your fueling, trial and error. In your training runs, it's not the end of the world. In your long runs, it's not the end of the world. We want everything to go well, but that's the time to try it out. So that's the best advice I think that we can give, is to try to figure out how much, what sources work for you. Because, we can give you the general guidelines, and you can say, okay, for a recovery run, 20 grams of carbs is going to work just fine, a piece of toast and some honey. Or for a workout, I need 40 grams of carbs. And people are probably thinking, well, how much is that? And how much do I need? Well, if you weigh more, there are so many factors that could mean that you might need more or that you might need a little less. And so the trial and error is super important. And so please start doing that. If you're not used to eating, maybe try something out, and you might be like, wow, I just felt incredible on this run. Someone that maybe is like Michael and doesn't eat and wants to try to eat, and maybe will feel better because they eat. And then you decide, is the sleep more important? In Michael's case, it is. Or is it that I felt a little better in my run? That's more important for me right now, or in this specific training cycle, that's a little more important for my goal. So maybe I'm going to give it a try. So trial and error, 100%. Figure out what works. Figuring out what works for you is just super important. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention again, because I feel like it's like the golden rule.
I'll give you guys some real-time feedback, which is I'm doing a workout in about an hour and a half, and my tummy is starting to growl a little bit because I'm getting a little bit kind of hungry. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ignore it, because I would rather have a relatively empty stomach and be well hydrated, of course, than to have some sort of horrible explosion. Okay, so let's wrap it up with some more TMI. Stupidest thing, Alex, stupidest thing you've ever done. I mean, besides the Alfredo, which is just like chef's kiss, man. Like, that's just incredible pull there. Dumbest thing you've ever done pre-race eating wise.
Oh man, I feel like I gave you my stupidest thing. Although a runner-up would be in 2017, I was in Montreal for an indoor track meet. The race was before dinner, but after lunch, and I didn't know what to get for lunch. And for some reason, I settled for supermarket sushi.
Oh no.
Because you're like, the rice. right?
Yeah, the rice.
Because I'm like, the rice, you think of the rice, you don't think of the poisonous fish or the wasabi. I dropped out of the race. I had a brutal race. It was at 3,000 meters, and after 2K, I was way off pace and felt terrible. And, it could be the sushi, could be something else.
Probably the sushi.
We'll let you blame it on the sushi.
We'll blame it on the sushi. But I think that moment solidified it for me. It's like, okay, don't try new things. Don't try new things to get a weird new little edge on race day. Stick with the regular.
Yeah. No. This is why I'm against things like faddish stuff, like diets and like the keto hype thing. And like, I get it. We were once Homo erectus or whatever, and we were, hunter-gatherers, and we would just eat one meaty meal a day and survive on that and run dozens of kilometers to hunt for that. But there's a lot of science that points in the other direction, which is we need to fuel on carbs before we run. So just balance out your meals otherwise. You can go carb heavy for pre-workout, pre-long run, but go be balanced otherwise, and hit your food groups. Katelyn, what's your tell us a story, Katelyn.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. I am very square and nerdy when it comes to my running. I bring Tupperware when I travel for races. Like, I am that kind of runner. So I don't want to have any stomach problems because I'm just prone to it. So I figure everything out. And I'm getting ready to run in 80K. And actually, it's the famous one I was talking to you guys about that used to be the North Face Challenge. So I was super excited about it, really trained. And we're at the night before, they always do like a race briefing. And they tell you what the markings are going to look like. And they go over, the ins and outs of the race. And so we're all there super excited, just like hundreds of people anticipating the race. And we're leaving, and there are some booths, with product. And an entrepreneur who was here had been producing some new granola bars. And, they were packaged up, and she was handing them out. And she handed them out to a friend, my husband and I, and we all took one. My husband, however, did not eat it. My friend and I did. And it didn't take more than a few hours to begin to have stomach issues. And I said, okay, well, this is going to pass. This will be fine. Got to the race, literally stopped 5 or 6 times, like serious food poisoning. But I was like, but I'm in second place. So I'm doing so well. I'm going to continue. I'm going to push through. And I did, which is not recommended because I was completely dehydrated by the end of the race, because not only is it 90 degrees and humid where I was running, but I was also not able to, let's say, replenish my fluid as fast as I was getting rid of it. So it was just like, why did I do that? And my friend, the same exact thing happened to my friend. So I feel, okay, like Alex can say, I want to blame it on the sushi. Maybe if you had another person there and the same thing happened to them and they ate the sushi, we were both like, why did we do that? That was like the stupidest decision we could have ever made. He dropped out of the race. He was the smart one who said, I have food poisoning.
And you finished it.
I did. And I do not recommend that was the smartest idea. But as I was running, I was like, well, if I still feel well, I mean, if I obviously I had to take the stops, and you feel well after those stops if you can just keep hydrating up. But it was definitely not an ideal race. And I don't suggest that someone would try to kind of push through in those sort of circumstances. I said, this was like when I was really starting out my running career. It was a while ago, and I was just excited, and I wanted to finish the race. But please don't take any handouts the night before a race. Don't try anything new. Don't eat anything that someone gives you. So the moral of the story.
Wow. Yeah, me and my friends from college have this thought experiment that's like, you're leading a race, but you need to poop. Do you stop or do you just keep going and hope for the best? And now I know which team you're on.
Well, in an ultra, at least you've got nature's toilet all around you, so you can pull off to the side and take care of business. But in, say, a road 5K in an inner city core,
or a track.
Oh,
Oh my God.
you're on full display. Yeah.
Track. No.
That's a tough call because that's a really embarrassing thing to go through. And it's not, I mean, I've never gone through that. I think I'd stop. And
Yeah.
it's not a pride thing. It's just, there's something really crass about shitting yourself in a race that I just think it's like, I'm not sure it's worth it. Right. I'm just not sure. That's actually a good, like, that's a good, it's like kind of a good runner, like one of these fundamental, like personality quiz type questions. It's like, what type of runner are you? Are you the, like you said with your friend, it's like, are you the person who you're winning a race? Do you shit yourself to win the race, or do you pull out of the race in order to take care of business?
Yeah, I'm not
business?
doing that. No.
Yeah, I am the latter. Maybe I'm a lesser runner for it, but Alex.
No.
Well, I'll turn the question on you. Which runner are you?
Well, they say a broken clock is right 2 times a day, and to win a 1500, you got to run past your own poop at least 3 3/4 times. So,
Yeah.
I would do it.
You do it. Oh my God.
I'm kidding. I'm kind of bluffing. Maybe in my younger days. Not now. Now that I have a job and stuff, I think it would be tough to pull
You're
off.
like, the Instagram post would be bad. Yeah. It'd be like live stream.
Yeah, in this social world of influencing and such.
You end up a
actually
story
wouldn't do
on
it.
our site. That's what
Yeah,
happens.
someone is videoing.
Jesse's
someone's
gonna
recording.
interview me.
Yeah.
No,
Thanks.
There was, I mean, like about 10 years ago, there was a story. This poor guy, like he shit himself at some point in the race, and I think he won the race. And it's so awful. And you can find, it was like a meme. It was a meme for, I mean, I'm sure it still is a meme. I haven't seen the meme around in a while, but like that guy became sort of known because he was the guy who shit himself in a race, and that's anyway.
I don't want that
Yeah.
name.
Not worth it.
My probably the dumbest thing I've ever done pre-race was, okay, so I don't know if I've told you guys this story before. I went and did, as a media trip, I went and covered or ran as an experience to write kind of a fluffy tourism piece about the Loch Ness Marathon in Scotland, okay? And I was super excited because I'm like, I'd always wanted to go to Scotland. You literally run around Loch Ness. It's like, that's the marathon course, is around this beautiful loch in the Scottish Highlands. Incredible race, by the way. Incredibly well organized, beautiful event, highest recommend. It's fantastic, really cool part of the world. But I didn't really do my homework, and I was planning on doing another race afterwards as my big goal race, and I was like, and it was a bit of a rushed media trip. It kind of got put together at the last minute. And I was like, yes, I'll absolutely go. And I was thinking to myself, I'll just run the half. I'll go. I won't run the whole marathon. I'll just run the half. It'll give me enough of an experience of the race that I can write about the weekend. I can write about the experience. Everyone will be happy, right? Speaking of being an influencer, right? Appeasing your masters. And I get there, and the night before the race, okay, first, I'm staying in this lovely little inn in the Scottish Highlands in Inverness, where the race starts and finishes. And I think to myself, I'm just going to jog a half marathon. I'm not even going to run it very fast. I'm just going to go out for basically kind of like a little bit of a medium-ish long run. Great. I believe the race was in September, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'll eat whatever I want the night before. There's no pressure on me to have to eat the pasta meal or whatever. So I go to the dining room of the little inn, and they've got like I think it was like a roasted Cornish hen with mashed potatoes and gravy, and it was just like this like pile of brown wonderful food, and I had 2 pints of beer. I was just like, yeah, fuck it. I don't care. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Right. And so I ate this pile of rich brown food and downed a couple of Scottish ales to wash it all down. And then I ran into the race person afterwards, the organizer, and was like, oh, hey, is it cool if I just run the half tomorrow morning? Like, you know, I'm planning on running, I think it was Chicago or something like that in a month's time. It's okay if I just downgrade to running like the half. And he was like, what half marathon? And I was, and then I had this realization that I was in for 26.2 miles the following morning. And I had done zero prep and ate this like super heavy meal at like, it was like 9 o'clock the night before. I'm just like, I have just done everything wrong. I'm not hydrated. I just drank a whole bunch of beer. I ate like I ate a small animal in full. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, I didn't have any, like, I had nothing to like hydrate with the next morning. I don't think their kitchen was open first thing in the morning. So I don't know if I don't know. I think I went to a corner store and bought a banana and I was like, I guess this is going to be it. You had to get bussed out to the start line. So there was this gap before the start. I did everything wrong. Everything wrong.
Oh no.
Ran a great marathon the next day.
Did you?
Yep. No stomach issues, nothing. I just drank a bunch of water before the race.
You got lucky.
I got lucky, I think.
Yeah.
But also, I was fairly fit at the time, too. So I think that was a factor. And I didn't run like a hard, all-out marathon. I found somebody to run with, and I just ran with him the entire time. And we chatted and had a really good experience. And I made a friend.
Nice.
And it was a great race, a great experience, a very beautiful race. I did not shit myself in the race, which was great. So,
That's a plus.
I mean, but that was definitely the stupidest thing I've ever done before a race, and I could have paid dearly for it. And I do not recommend a Cornish hen and 2 pints of beer and gravy the night before a marathon. Not a great idea.
Noted.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. If you haven't already, give this video a like because it helps us connect with other runners like yourself. And also be sure to subscribe to this channel. That way you're going to get all the new videos that we produce. We're releasing new content every single day on YouTube. Thanks for watching.